So we're going to finish off our CRUD application. We've built our form. We can load our form. Whoops, I think that's like closed. So we can edit, but if we click our save button, we're going to get an error because we have no post handler at this URL. So that's the last route handler we need in games.js. Right? If I click this right now, change something, and click, we're going to get this. And our console tells us that our error is 404 because there's no post handler at games/ID. So just like we have a get handler here, we need a post handler as well. So our URL, again, is just :_ID with our callback. So we have a few steps here. Update's a little more involved than the other things we've been doing. So we're going to create a new game instance, and we need to fill all 5 of the properties of the game. Our ID. Our ID comes still from the URL because the page posts to itself. So we still have the ID in the URL. So we use request.params.id for that part. The other 4 fields come from request.body. So it's kind of like we're using almost like get and post at the same time here. So the ID is still in the URL because we're on the same page. But then our title, developer, all these come from our, whoops, this should be request.body. The first value is coming from the URL, and the other 4 are coming from the form post. Now our Mongoose model, it's got find one, create, remove. It also has an update method that we want to call. So the update method actually takes 3 separate parameters. The first one is we need to pass in the ID separately. Then we pass in our modified game object with all the new values. And then our last one is our callback function, where we check for an error. So we can call game.update. So our ID, again, comes from our parameter, our URL parameters. And whoops, actually, it's kind of weird. I did this wrong. With remove, actually, maybe I didn't. Hang on. Sorry, folks. I did it right. Oh, no, I did it right. It's weird because with remove, we just pass in the ID, yet with update, it actually wants it in the form of a JSON object. Why, I don't know. It's kind of a different syntax for remove and update, which is a bit confusing. I don't know why. Now we pass in our game variable. And then lastly, our callback. You don't need to get anything back. Again, we're just going to redirect if we have no error. So we don't need to retrieve anything here. Usual error handling. And again, if no error happens, Mongoose successfully updated that document. So we should just be able to call redirect /games. So this should allow us to do an update now. So we're creating a new game and then passing that whole thing as a JSON object. We'll try and see if it works. Okay, that was good. So we could change that. What if we change some other things? So now I can update any field. So I can now fix my openware to open world now that we can update and all my data is correct.
Tried updating multiple.
How can you can't update?
Like I tried filling all fields with different things.
Okay, check your console because you should have an error message. So Jacob, check the console for the error message and then look carefully at your post method. Because mine seems to work, I can update any of these fields. And it seems to work okay. So there's our whole CRUD module. So we've got 5 or 6 root handlers, and we can do create, read, update, and delete. If we think for a minute about where this goes, let's imagine, I don't know, is anybody using Node for Project Studio? Right? So if you are, right, you now have everything you need. You're going to have a, let's say, a camper model that defines what a camper is, all the properties. Well, you have all the root handling to do create, read, update, and delete. You're just going to be changing what the properties are. And you'll call those exact same Mongoose methods: find one, create, update, remove. So really the only thing that will change is the model and the fields you're working with. But kind of the pattern that we have here, you can use to do anything, right? So for your second assignment, what you're going to need to do is I'm going to give you a few options of what you're going to build, but you'll basically be building another version of what we've done here, where you've got create, read, update, and delete and authentication wrapped around it. So we'll start the authentication piece next week. we'll use a package. So next week, we'll do local authentication where you sign up and log in. After reading week, we'll add social authentication. And then we're going to rebuild this entire thing as a single page application with Angular 2. So there's one page where we can view, add, edit, delete, and the page never reloads. Angular just refreshes the data in real time without the page having to reload or without us having to go anywhere else. So it's a really kind of fast, good user experience. So we'll build out a separate version of this, but using the same collection in MongoDB. So we'll use TypeScript and Angular 2 for that. I'll give you more details about this, but also coming as part of assignment 2, I have a couple ideas for project options that you can choose from. You're free to suggest your own project, but there's also an external project by somebody else in my department who's looking to have a web application done, and I think it would be a good fit. The scope of it is not that large, so it's small enough that you could use the Express generator in MongoDB and basically build what we did pretty much here today. You'd only have to add a couple of features. So he's looking to have that done, and there may be some kind of like prize or cash, I'm not sure. So if anyone's interested in doing that for assignment 2, I'll tell you more about that after reading week, and you're free to try to tackle that one. So the only other thing we need to do is I just want to add on friendly page titles, because right now all you see is the URL. So I'm just going to open up the header for a minute. It's in views and partials. So in our header, notice our title tag is blank. Let's inject a variable here called title. We'll output it with an equal sign. Now, by doing this, if you now go back to your browser, we've broken all our views. They're all going to crash because now every page has got to supply a title variable to the header. So header is trying to display this variable, but it's not getting it from anywhere yet. So I just added this here on line 5. So if you try any of your links now, they're all going to break. Actually, home won't, but everything else will break. Because title is not defined. Right? So register breaks, login breaks, and all our games pages break. So let's go and fix this. First, let's open up roots index.js. So this is what the Express generator did. We did this in lesson 4. It doesn't crash because when we call the main index page, we are passing it a variable called title. So I want to change this from lesson 4 to call it like COMP2106, video game library. So all of the other res.render statements, both in this controller as well as in the games controller, we need to pass a title because the header is trying to display that variable. So on register, we could pass the title of something like please register. Now, register, login, and our home page all will have a descriptive page title. So it looks better for the user, much better for SEO, obviously, if we've got a descriptive page title. If we wanted to set different metadata, we could do the same, have some dynamic meta tags in our header, and feed in, keywords and description from our controller, and we could render those. We'll leave that out, but that's how we do it. So we'll add that little JSON object with a title and a value. And now we need to do the same thing in our games controller. Any of the methods where we're calling res.render, now error already works, so we don't need to have the title. But in our games.js, so here we're calling games index. We also need a title. Put in any title you want to appear in your browser tab. When we render add, and when we do a get on ID, when we render edit, we need it here too. So 6 places, we've got 6 views that we're loading. So any route that loads one of those 6 views has to pass it a title variable, because all those views are sharing the header, and the header's trying to display that title value. I think we're good now. So index says video game library, and it probably should have the right course code. It's been a long day. So now I can go to games, I can go to add, I can go to edit, register, log in.